You've made it to Chiro Hustle. Sit back and learn from the greatest influencers in the profession on the world's #1 chiropractic podcast. Before we dive into this powerful episode, please remember to subscribe to our channels and to give us a 5-star rating on iTunes to continue hustling. This episode is sponsored by Imaging Services, Chiro Health USA, Chiro Moguls, Pure Chiro Notes, Titronics, Sherman College of Chiropractic, New Patients in a Box, the Influencer Authority Podcast Training, Mango Voice, Life Chiropractic College West, and M-Sculpt. Let's hustle.
Hey guys, welcome to episode 474 of the Chiro Hustle podcast. I'm your producer, Luke Millette, and here's your host, James Chester.
So today we had the opportunity of interviewing Dr. Mike Carberry. And if you want to hear about how collaboration is the new currency, stay tuned. Welcome back. This is another episode of the Chiro Hustle podcast. We got episode 474 today. Mike Carberry coming in from the beautiful sunshine state of Florida. I'm coming in from cold Colorado today. Before we get into this episode, I just want to let everybody know the big why. Why do we do what we do over here at Chiro Hustle? I was just telling Mike the integrity that I believe that this show brings to the chiropractic marketplace and why it's become a media forum for people to get information from. So I'll just tell you guys the big why. We do protect freedom of speech with our show. There's never been one show that we've censored. We've never removed anybody for anything they've ever said. And I believe that that's integrity. We also believe in family medical freedom. And I think that that's something that people have to understand too, that chiropractic produces that for people. And the chiropractors, I believe, are the last chess piece on the chessboard that haven't gone down when it comes to protecting the future of this country when it comes to medical freedom and family medical freedom choices. And then we also protect BJ Palmer's Sacred Trust. If you don't know what that means, go to your favorite search engine right now and go find BJ Palmer's last words. You'll know so much more about chiropractic than you ever knew before. And then we also support subluxation-based chiropractic. We believe that that is something in the vernacular and in the historical resonance that's important for today and into the future of this profession. And then lastly, we believe in innate intelligence and universal intelligence, and that when man or woman gets adjusted by a chiropractor, it connects man or woman, the physical, to man or woman, the spiritual. And with that being said, Dr. Mike Carberry, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me here, James. It's an honor to be on your show.
You know, it's been a long time coming, hasn't it?
Yeah. I believe our paths were destined to cross at some point.
Yeah, and I thank the Chiropractic Congress for bringing that event together down there in St. Louis so we could actually see some face-to-face time with each other.
Yeah, I agree.
And I was reading your bio. I'm really excited to talk about some of the things that you've been up to and a little bit about your storyline of how you got to where you are today.
Right.
But you have background in marketing. I know we don't need to like focus on that right now, but that's really exciting to me. Maybe we'll talk a little bit about that when I talk about like marketing strategies for chiropractors.
Right.
But let's tell your story. I know that you went to Life University, and you're telling me like, you know, I only thought there was one chiropractic college. I'm kind of embarrassed. And I'm like, I did too. I grew up in Davenport, Iowa. I thought the only chiropractic college out there in the world is Palmer. So right. Let's just start open up a little bit and tell our audience how you got into this beautiful profession.
Well, that's an interesting story. So I graduated school in 1983 from Stockton, at that time, Stockton State College. It's now Stockton University in New Jersey with a marketing degree, like you said. And I got hired by a company called Reuben Donnelly, which did advertising. They were owned by Dun & Bradstreet. And so I got to work for a Fortune 500 company in marketing, selling advertising. And it was a great career. I was making money. I got an offer from another company and moved to that company, started selling industrial maintenance supplies, which would be like to maintain nuclear power plants or like Delmarva Power or the DOT, Delaware Transportation Authority. And so I was doing that, and I was making a lot of money, but I wasn't really like impassioned by what I was doing. I met my wife, who was a physical therapist, and her specialty was traumatic brain injury and stroke rehabilitation. And so I found that really interesting. Like, how do you do that? I like to work out, take care of myself. And it was amazing what she was telling me. But while we were dating, I had a serious neck injury. Now, it wasn't the thing that I did that caused it. It was all of the previous motorcycle accidents. I used to do martial arts. I even competed a little bit, got knocked out in the ring a couple times. But riding motorcycles up trees, having 5 brothers trying to kill me for the first 20 years of my life, all these things led to injuries to my neck. And I didn't know I had a neck problem until I jumped off of this platform on the beach. I landed on my feet. It wasn't an awkward fall or anything, but I got a shock of electricity go through my body when I did it, and I collapsed on the beach, and I was paralyzed. Now, that scared the living crap out of me because I couldn't feel anything from the neck down. People came over, and I was like, don't touch me, don't touch me. My wife started getting people away from me. But what happened was, in about a minute or so, I got all the feeling back in my body. But as the feeling came back, I had pain up the side of my head and pain in my arm. And my wife, being a physical therapist who treated traumatic brain injury and strokes and also neck injuries, took me to the hospital, and the doctor thought I broke my neck. So he took all these x-rays, they strapped me into a headboard, and then he came out and said, after I was there for like hours, well, you didn't break your neck. We don't know what you did. Here's a bunch of medication. So I started off doing that. I had no idea I was going to get involved in chiropractic. But after about a month of taking medication that kept me out of commission all day long, I was like, okay, this is not me. I am not going to be one of those people. I'm not taking this medication. I think I'm going to go to a chiropractor. So I went, and my wife was concerned about it. We weren't married yet. But when she saw what the chiropractor did, she was like, oh my God, these guys are actually working on the keyboard to the brain. And I didn't know what she meant at the time, but what she did as a physical therapist to wake up a brain injury was to load and unload weight-bearing joints, which sends information to the brain. So basically, your spine is the keyboard to your brain. And she said, I never imagined if you had a stuck vertebrae that there was somebody who could unstick that. But that's what a chiropractor does. They put the keys back on the keyboard. So as I became a chiropractor and learned more about the nervous system and neurology, I realized what she was saying, that having every vertebrae work properly is sending information to your brain. And your brain's, 90% of what your brain's doing all day is trying to overcome gravity. So it's the information from the weight-bearing joints, which 90% are between C1 and S1. So you keep all those things moving, you get better information, the computer works better. So all of a sudden I was like, that is why my headaches went away when I started getting treated. I never even told the chiropractor I had headaches. I had headaches before I got injured. I never realized it was related to something that I did to my neck. But when they went away, I was like, so this is what it's like to not have headaches. Oh my gosh. So at that point, I was like, I am done with marketing. I am done with sales. I am going to chiropractic school. So I said to the chiropractor that I was going to, Frank, where do you go to learn this? And he said, Marietta, Georgia. Okay, I'm in. So when I got down there, I realized, oh, there's other schools. So I was in from day one. And that whole subluxation complex, the science behind that to me is fascinating. And I've seen so many miracles. I don't know if you know this, but when I first started my practice in 1992 in Pennsylvania, within 4 years, I was doing 700 visits a week. So we were cranking them in and cranking them out, getting a lot of people help by adjusting. And I was a straight chiropractor. And that was how I got involved in chiropractic initially, was to get, so my mission became, I want to get the world under chiropractic care, because I almost didn't get under chiropractic care. And if I didn't, I probably wouldn't be alive right now. So it saved my life.
At least with the quality of life that you present today.
Exactly.
And that's really what, the world of medical professionals should be focused on, outcomes and performance driven, as they say it in the medical world, activities of daily living.
Yep.
Like you should be like thriving in that, not just kind of, scooting along.
Well, there was a scam that was perpetrated on the American public, and that was to get us to all believe that health is having no symptoms. And that was created by the pharmaceutical industry. And so basically what they did was they forwarded that by without getting into it in too much detail, John D. Rockefeller had Simon Flexner was his medical doctor, and his brother was Albert Flexner, and they created the Flexner Report, which went around and credentialed medical schools. And they were credentialing them based on the amount of pharmaceuticals they prescribe, because they said if they prescribe pharmaceuticals, then they're scientific. If they don't, then they're not. And they would give them money if they were prescribing pharmaceuticals, and they would shut them down if they didn't. That was in 1910. And in 5 years, we went from probably 600 medical schools in the United States of various disciplines to 50. And what they did was they contained what's being taught to the medical profession, and they're now taught, you have high blood pressure, you take a drug to lower your blood pressure. You have high cholesterol, you take a drug to lower your cholesterol. Not being taught, let's get the body to heal itself. The thing I love about chiropractic, and this is one of the things that is responsible for most of the miracles you see with chiropractic, is it actually switches you out of sympathetic mode in your nervous system, which is fight or flight, and puts you into parasympathetic mode, which is the healing phase. And see, what happens is, because of our lifestyle, because of stress, because of all the different things going on in the world today, people get stuck in fight or flight. And fight or flight is not designed for long term. It shuts down all the blood flow and energy to your organs, and you can't heal. And when you actually flip somebody back into parasympathetic mode and they go, hey, I came in here for neck pain and my asthma went away, or my stomach problem cleared up, or all of a sudden I'm having normal menstrual cycles. I had women tell me, I went through menopause 5 years too early, and now I got my cycle back. And it was all because we just flipped them back into parasympathetic mode, and the body started healing itself. That's what I love about chiropractic.
Well, I think a lot of these things are easier, much more easy, you know, when your career started than they are today, because now we're constantly bombarded by trauma, thoughts, and toxins more than ever before. And most people don't even understand what a trauma is. They think it's like some high speed, like collision. No, it's sitting in front of a sedentary computer screen constantly. It's not moving your body. You know, when I first got into chiropractic 14 years ago, Mike, I read a report that they said sitting's the new smoking. And I was like, what are they talking about? And they said that your body was decaying at a rapid rate, the same way that somebody with cardiovascular disease from smoking would have if you weren't actually out doing at least 30 minutes of walking every day.
That is true. That is true. And, you know, the older you get, I'm going to be 62 this year. And the older you get, the more you realize that, because your body doesn't heal the way it used to when you're in your 20s and 30s and even 40s.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. You know, earlier you were talking about gravity, and our body's constantly fighting gravity forces too. And that's Wolff's Law. Like, I mean, if anybody wants to go look up what Wolff's Law is, your body will build osteophytes within your spine to make sure that your head doesn't fall over, or to make sure that your body doesn't fold in half. Like, it's the limitations of matter. And that's why a lot of times when people are in their 60s and they come into a chiropractor and you're like, doc, I got this sciatica. Can you like clear it up for me? You look at their x-ray and you're like, dude, it looks like you haven't done anything to your body in the last 40 years. What do you expect me to do?
Right.
Like, you look like you've been put together with bubble gum and haling, like bay haling wire. Like, you don't even look like, are you like really a functioning human?
Yeah. Well, the thing is, people are very deconditioned, and I can see a difference in my career from 1991 until now. Like, for example, this is a pretty peculiar thing. In the 90s, we never saw somebody in their 20s with a chronic degenerative problem, and rarely in their 30s. But now we regularly see people with chronic degenerative changes to their body in their 20s, which I never saw that before. So one of the things that we do in our model that we teach is what we created was an integrated practice, because I wanted to work with my wife, because I started seeing all these people being deconditioned. And I figured, excuse me one second. I figured a PT with a chiro would be a great thing. Well, in Pennsylvania, a physical therapist is not allowed to work off the order of a chiropractor. And basically what they told my wife back in the 90s was, if you work with your husband, you're going to lose your license. So we thought, that's the dumbest thing in the world. Like, you know, it would help people. You get adjusted, you recondition the body, strengthen the body. So somebody said, well, why don't you bring in a medical doctor to order the PT? And I'm like, over my dead body, because these guys think just way different. And so my wife said, let's just see if we can find one. So we put an ad out, and we had 300 medical doctors apply for the job. And we couldn't even interview them all. And a lot of them were saying, I am so sick of prescribing drugs, I want to do something different. And all of a sudden in my head, I went, you know what? That's how we can change healthcare.
Wow. I think you guys are. And as I was talking to you and your wife yesterday, she said a little phrase that was collaboration is the new currency.
That's right.
And I think that early on in your career with her, being strong armed by a system that has nothing to do with getting people healthy, they were actually stymieing. They were slowing down the process of development of
Right.
how to help more people. And when I got into chiropractic 14 years ago, the doc I was working under, I asked him, why are we doing this chiropractic thing? I was 30 years old. And he's like, my objective is just to help more people.
Right.
I just want to help more people.
Yeah. You know, when I started chiropractic school, one of my professors came out. There was 300 people in my class. They had to divide us in two because it was such a big class. So there was 150 in the class I was sitting in. And the professor came out first day of school, chiropractic school, and he said, everybody who's here because they got injured and they want to help other people, stand up. And out of the 150, it was probably 140 got injured and changed their career because they wanted to help other people.
You've made it to Chiro Hustle. Sit back and learn from the greatest influencers in the profession on the world's #1 chiropractic podcast. This episode is sponsored by Imaging Services, Chiro Health USA, Chiro Moguls, Pure Chiro Notes, Titronics, Sherman College of Chiropractic, New Patients in a Box, the Influencer Authority Podcast Training, Mango Voice, Life Chiropractic College West, and M-Sculpt. Let's hustle. Well, because we become empathetic when we see someone else's plight. And if we can build ourselves into somebody that is a provider, it goes back to the hunting and gathering times.
Yeah.
If you can do something well, you want people's survival. And if you see a void in the marketplace and you can fill that void, it just makes sense that you become a professional and go help more people.
Right. Exactly. And so what my career has been is to do exactly that, to help, more people. One of the things that frustrated me when I became a chiropractor and I started treating was, even though I saw a lot of people, chiropractic only attracts 10% of the population. And I was very frustrated with that 90% because they could really benefit tremendously from it. And it was literally just a PR campaign to discredit chiropractic to keep people out of those offices. So when we created the medical model that we teach now, it is a non-drug model. And the viewpoint is we're going to try to get your body to heal itself. You know, I got that concept from a guy named Deepak Chopra, if you know who he is, a medical doctor from Harvard. And I was listening to a talk he was giving, and he said the best tool the doctor has is the patient's body, to get the body to use to do the work to heal itself. And I realized that's what we're trying to do. So if you look at our model of healthcare, some people say, well, you have medical clinics, you're a sellout. No, we have medical clinics that are working on fixing the body, not getting rid of the symptom. That's the difference. It's a functional approach.
Well, I think this goes back to your early days of class assembly when Sid Williams would come in and drop the keys.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, and I tell people when I'm out doing my work where I'm getting a ton of new patients for an office, I say, look, chiropractic's like gravity. It works whether you believe it or not.
That's right.
And I think a lot of times people forget the fact that we're under constant pressure from just being on our feet all day, or sitting or sleeping. Like we're constantly under pressure. And when you're talking about like these deregulated bodies, deconditioned bodies, if they could make themselves healthier, they would. They just don't know what to do or who to go to or who to trust. Then they get stuck into a medical system that puts them into the pill mill, and then they get stuck on something that they never are able to get off of again, and then that ruins a family.
Well, I'll tell you, I have experience with that too, because I have a family member that exact thing happened to him. And at 17 years old, he was prescribed an opioid for an ankle injury. And it was a bad ankle injury. I mean, he broke his ankle, but you give a 17-year-old opioids and then you cut him off. And by 18, he was a heroin addict. And it was pretty tough for the family. So I actually went in and I did an intervention and got him. And he went to get the drugs out of his system. And then he lived with me for a year. And I learned firsthand, first when I had to find him, I had to find it. At that point, he was 20 and he was a heroin addict. And to go find a heroin addict who's living on the street is not a fun experience. And then when you get him in your house and you have to actually basically help him overcome these drugs, I'm like, this is what medicine is turning into. You make these people opioid addicts, or the vast majority of opioids, the number one reason people get on them is for back pain. And I'm like, this is not okay. And I am trying to get other practitioners to stop doing it. And we have a network all over the country now of practitioners, medical practitioners, nurse practitioners, MDs, who will not prescribe those things. And they work with chiropractors and physical therapists to fix the patient.
Well, here's the thing. Chiropractic is the elephant in the room.
Yeah.
And nobody wants to talk about it.
Right.
Except for us.
We're sneaking in the back door. So
except for us.
Yeah, it's true. In my clinics, people come in that are in the 90% because we're medical clinics. And when they come in, one of the things we're recommending is chiropractic and rehab and not drugs. So we're doing some stuff with regenerative medicine. We're doing stuff with very non-invasive, lidocaine injections based on the work of Janet Travell and, things that are not going to hurt people. And the number one objection we get from patients when they go to start a program is, do I have to do the chiropractic? And the medical people go just like this. Yes, you do. So what happens is when those people are fixed at the end and they're discharged, that a lot of times they'll say to us, I never thought I'd get chiropractic, but I realized that was a pretty important part of this program. I am so glad I did this. So we're converting those people. That's what our mission is.
Well, as you know, in sales and marketing, the real plan is to give people what they want and sell them what they need.
Exactly.
And a lot of times people won't go and do something healthy for them if it's up to them.
Right.
They almost have to be like handheld into like the facility to say, okay, I'm going to sit here with you while you get your x-rays done. It's going to be okay.
I've seen that happen too. I remember having people say, well, no, I'll just, excuse me, I'll just live with it. I got to take care of my family. And I remember saying to this one woman, well, they're going to be taking care of you then, because you're not going to fix this problem.
And problem is, Mike, is people aren't tough enough and they become a liability to their families because of ignorance.
Yeah.
And they think that there's going to be a pill, a potion, or a lotion that's going to make them healthy over their lifetime. And maybe some of those things will like put a Band-Aid on them for a hot minute, but it's not going to get them lasting change. And what it really does is it breaks down their biology and it makes them less viable and less vibrant and less vital. And I think when people become less vital, they don't heal fast and they keep on doing things over time. And it's like titration in chemistry. If you put so much of some element into another element, eventually it changes its property. Yeah. And that's what we're doing to the human condition is we're adding in so much stuff over time, and it's actually titrating the body into something that it was never meant to be. And then it becomes chronically ill.
Yeah. Every cell in the body is a little furnace. It's a little engine, right? And if you decondition those cells, then you lower down the energy coming from those furnaces. And that's called your metabolism. Metabolism, defined by Webster, is the rate of healing of the body, or the ability of the body to convert food into living tissue, and to energy as well. So these people are so deconditioned. I'll just give an example. I've started clinics in multiple states. I've had a bunch of clinics in Tennessee. I sold them all off except for one, which I still have, but I live in Florida. And it runs based on the systems we created. But one of the stats we keep track of is how much weight does a person lose? Because we're doing upper cross, lower cross syndrome based on Dr. Yanda. And that is trying to balance the muscles that hold posture in place. So these people we're getting are totally deconditioned. Our average patient in Tennessee in a 8 to 12 week program, we'll say 10 weeks is average, loses 20 pounds just by doing core exercises. 20 pounds. It's incredible.
And as we know, we're at the tipping point of half of our nation being either obese or metabolically challenged.
Yeah. And that is what we're seeing. Plus all the stuff that's happening now, which is a whole nother nightmare. But
well, let's get back on track to a couple of these questions, because I'm really excited to actually like get some information from you based on your idea of where chiropractic is heading.
Okay.
Because I know that early on in our pre-interview chat, you were kind of excited about that question.
Yeah.
So as we develop, I'll be in 10 years, 54. In 20 years, I'll be 2 years older than you today. I'll be 64. So when I'm 64, what will I inherit as a chiropractic medical system?
Well, you'll definitely inherit the song from the Beatles, When I'm 64. But besides that, it all depends on what we do as chiropractors now. So the nice thing about the future is if you focus on it, you can create it. If you focus on the past, you have no control over the future. So
Amen.
The future is in front of us right now. And there's a few things that happened just recently that is actually giving us more credibility. And we call it the perfect storm. I'm not going to go into great detail on this, but there are 3 things that came out in the last 2 years that actually painted the environment where now the majority of Americans, and the number I heard this morning from one of our marketing people is 76% of Americans have learned to distrust the medical machine. And those 3 things are this: opioids. So leading cause of death of Americans under the age of 50 is opioids.
Fentanyl.
I'm sorry?
Fentanyl.
Fentanyl is one of the opioids. The reason there's so many fentanyl deaths now, we've been told that the opioid crisis is under control. Not exactly true. The latest numbers, according to my friend John Rosa, former chair of New York Chiropractic College, and he's a member of the White House task force on opioids, we went from an average of 650,000 new prescriptions written every day to 500,000 written every day. And the people that are being cut off are the ones who are already addicted. So we haven't stopped this problem. The ones who are already addicted are turning to the street drugs, and the easiest, cheapest one to get is fentanyl. There's so much fentanyl coming across the border that in the first quarter of last year, there was enough fentanyl captured by border agents coming across our border to kill 1/3 of the population of planet Earth. That's what was confiscated. So you can imagine what was missed. That's why the number of people dying from opioid overdoses in 2000, it was 11,000 people a year on average would die of an overdose. In 2019, it was 70,000. In 2020, it was closer to 100. In 2021, it was 111,000. And what we're going to find is in 2022, it was even greater than that because these people are still getting addicted and they're turning to street drugs. So that crisis is nowhere near solved. That's number one. Go ahead.
No, let's continue with the perfect storm. We got about 4 more minutes before we wrap up today.
Okay. Number 2 is that the whole pandemic thing, and I'm not going to say whether you should have got it vaccinated or not. I'm just saying there's some pretty bizarre things happening now, like the number of young people, especially we saw it last night, having heart attacks, the number of people having blood clots, the number of people having odd cancers, and our highest death rate of Americans age 18 to 64 was last year in history. It was up by 40%. That's number 2. And then number 3 is that it was just exposed that antidepressants, which have been out for 30 plus years, were now in the original studies, the placebos performed better than the antidepressants did. And the one thing that they know the antidepressants cause is homicidal and suicidal actions. And the number 2 cause of death of Americans right now is suicide. And the number of people who are on antidepressants that committed homicidal acts is astronomical. So Americans are going, I don't know if I trust these drug companies anymore. And that's our opportunity. And with that opportunity, if we step in and work with the medical professionals who are getting fed up with it, we can actually educate Americans to the difference between symptom relief and functional change. And that's the future.
Well, Mike, I thank you for being our guest today on episode. We're at 474. Yeah. I know you have an offer that you'd like to give people today on the show. And then let's share any web resources you have if anybody wants to get in touch with you about your AMI program.
Okay, so we actually, and this isn't just for our clients, this is for anybody. We want chiropractors to be successful. And I figured out a blueprint that made all my clinics successful because I've never had an unsuccessful one. So that blueprint, we turned it into a course that you can do online for free. And your listeners, if they want to do that, it's at amidoctors.com/blueprint. And if they go there, they can sign up for that course and just take it, and it'll help them to build their practice. It's the blueprint I used to build my practices.
I put it on the screen there for you.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Yeah.
So yeah, if they just sign up for that course. Now, if they have any interest in anything beyond that, they could there's ways there they can contact us. But if they just want to do that and keep going the way they're going, that's fine with me. We need more chiropractic, not less. And right now, we need a whole lot more of it.
So let's go speed round. 2 questions. We have a minute left. Tell us a miracle story. Keep it to 30 seconds.
Miracle story in 30 seconds. So I had a lot of miracle stories, but I think the weirdest one was a guy came in, he had no hair, and he said his hair fell out, he had alopecia, and he went to a dermatologist, and the dermatologist said, we just inject you with steroids, and he discharged him today and said, maybe you should try a chiropractor. I'm like, there's no cure for that. I can't fix that. The guy said, well, check my neck out. And he sure enough had a problem with C1. So I said, look, I'm not going to make your hair grow back. I'm going to fix your neck. So I started adjusting him, and his hair grew back. And he documented it in pictures. And he showed his hair getting worse when he was going to the MD. And he wrote, started chiropractic, and you can see the hair growing back. That was a pretty wild miracle story.
And then second speed question is, if you're the last chiropractor on planet Earth, would the profession survive?
As long as I survive, because I'll be teaching everybody I know how to do it.
Amen. Well, Mike, it's been an honor to have you on to the show. Really thankful to be able to host you and to see how our paths can converge and grow better together.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll be working together in the future.
Well, I'm going to close out by telling everybody, you're just one story away. Keep hustling. I'll see you guys on the next episode. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks,
all right.
Bye.
Bye. Thanks for listening to Chiro Hustle. Don't forget to subscribe and check back next week to continue hustling.